Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing some easy one sheet wonders using some 12 by 12 inch papers. This is from the Fresh Florals pad that I showed you in my last haul video, and this was my favourite, so I wanted to create some cards straight away using it. And I'm going to be creating a bunch of cards. They're going to be 6 by 6 in size. So I'm picking out 4 different pieces of the patterned paper, and we're going to do some creative cuts, hopefully some different cuts than what I've done before. And we're going to basically, for all 4 of the different creative cuts we're going to make, we're going to do one from each piece of patterned paper, if that makes sense. Hopefully you'll see it when we sort of get to that portion. But yeah, I wanted to use 4 different papers, so then, you know, I had the same card design but in 4 different patterned papers. So these are double-sided, which works perfectly for these like one sheet wonders and for what we're going to do, because you can use both sides on the card. So this is 12 by 12 paper. Like I said, I'm creating 6 by 6 inch cards. So you'd think the easiest thing to do is just to cut these down to create 4 6 by 6 panels. Super easy math. But what I like to do is to have that white border on my card. I don't want it to go right to the edge. So I decided to cut my panels down to 5 3/4. Now, on most of the cards, this worked out okay, where I didn't really have to do too much thinking about it, but you do get, so all of your strips and things aren't going to be the same size, and again I'll show you that when we get to it. But on my 4th set of cards, where I wanted to create a grid, so I was cutting it up into squares, it got really confusing by the time that I tried to glue the squares down, because the middle squares weren't the exact size. I just had trouble lining it back up again. That is currently in the video. Whether I sort of keep it in there, maybe I'll include a little bit of footage just so you can see what I mean. If you are going to do a card like that with squares, so something that really needs to be even, we need to think about a different way of doing it. Where I've done 5 3/4 inches, it just makes things a little bit more awkward, and then trying to work it out to get it precise. You can see when I cut it that I do lay it out, but then that kind of goes out the window very quickly, and I just kind of lose where I was with it, and yeah, what pieces really needed to go where. But we'll look at that when we come to that particular card design. So what I'm doing for now is, again, just cutting all of these pieces down to create my 5 3/4 inch squares. I've got those scraps, which I'm definitely going to be keeping. We can create some scrap cards with any papers that we have got left over. That's definitely going to be on the cards as well. My first tip of this video is just to cut one piece of paper at a time. When I was doing it, it was moving slightly because I obviously wasn't holding it down tight enough. So I would definitely say cut one sheet at a time and make sure that you do get your measurements correct. So now I've got all 16 of my panels here. I'm just laying them out. So I'm going to have 4 piles because I'm going to create 4 different layouts. And I want to make sure that I have each piece of patterned paper for each of the designs. So I'm just splitting them out into, again, 4 piles of 4, and I can move those to one side, and we can get cutting, start to cut our creative cuts. I'm going to call them creative cuts, really, because it's just doing something, you know, a little bit different. For this first one, I do end up getting my phone out to make sure that I cut this correctly, because, again, if you do 6 by 6 and you just cover, or maybe you do a card base that's slightly bigger than that, possibly, it's going to be super easy math. I hate trying to work out different measurements and things, but you know, you can pretty much just cut it in the middle. So this first stack of 4, we're going to be cutting straight down the middle, and we're going to do what we did before, what we've done before, and we're just going to turn that second panel over, so then we can have the 2 different patterns next to each other. So super simple, and you can have this portrait or landscape. We're doing portrait for these cards today, but you know, it will work both ways. So that is our first stack of creative cuts. Again, another super easy version here is just to cut corner to corner on the diagonal. And again, I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to turn one of those pieces over, and we're going to have the 2 different patterns together. If you want to create card little collections, so like a little pack of cards to give to people or to sell, using paper pads and things like this, super easy, because it is just there and it's going to work out just where you can work them out so quickly, you can just get going with it. So for my third set, again, I wanted to do strips here, but I just didn't want to. I think I did calculate it, and I really couldn't think about, after a long day at work, I really just couldn't think about working it out properly. So all I did was cut 2 inches from the left hand side. I turned it over because I wanted the pattern to be the same way. I turned it over and then I cut 2 inches from the other side. So the left hand strip and the right hand strip are 2 inches wide, and then the middle is just whatever that remainder is. So I thought this is going to work perfectly. And I was really happy with this one because I turned that middle panel over, and then I accidentally went into my 4th pile here and did the same thing. And this is where I realized, so I wasn't initially planning to do, I was going to do something different. I wasn't planning to do the squares, but I thought, well, I've made this mistake now. Let's just go with it. So I sort of had a little play around with it, how I was going to do it, and basically what I ended up doing was the same thing that I just did for the strips, and I cut 2 inches from one side, 2 inches from the other, and that middle section is just whatever it's going to be. So you can see when I sort of lay these out here, so the idea was going to be that we were going to have a cross in the middle that was then the different papers, or, you know, some sort of design by turning the papers over. How I was laying it down was literally having that kind of cross section in the middle. But the 2 middle, so that whole middle strip going horizontally, the whole middle strip going vertically, that is that smaller size. And again, you can see that I was laying it out, it was going to work nicely, and I'll show you, because I think these were one of the first cards that I tried to put together, and I will show you now just the kind of mess that I kind of got myself into. I really could have sat down and thought about it, but it was just, I tried to do that for probably about 10-15 minutes, and to be honest, I just gave up. So we're going to use these squares for a different project on a different card. You know, it's going to go into that scrap pile, and we are definitely going to make use of them. So this is jumping forward. You can see that I've cut all of my pieces here, and you can see, hopefully, with me just sort of putting them together, I'm trying to put the different sizes together. I had one which was much smaller, which I think might have been the middle piece, the very center piece of it. But it was almost like no matter how much I looked at this, I just couldn't get it to line up. I really couldn't. I'm really good at puzzles. I absolutely love doing puzzles. But this, I don't know if it was because, like I said, I'd been in work all day, and I just couldn't get my head around it. So I stuck, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 of these down to the card base, and I was like, I'm not doing this, which is a really big shame. I would really have loved for this card to turn out, you know, this card design to turn out lovely. But yeah, it just, like I said, it just wasn't on the cards of something that was going to happen. What I am thinking of doing is seeing what sort of the smallest size is in these squares, and basically I'm just going to cut them down, and we're going to do this kind of same design, this kind of grid design, but we're just going to do it on a smaller scale. So maybe it'll end up being like a 5x5 panel, but again, it's still using all of these squares. I definitely don't want to waste it, but because now I don't end up creating these cards, we're going to skip forward to look at the next cards that we create. So we're going to put together the 2 triangular halves, and so with this I'm basically leaving the pieces as they are. I'm not mixing and matching the patterns together. I'm just literally flipping it over, so whatever the pattern is on the other side of the cardstock is the pattern that I'm going to be, or the pattern, sorry, that I'm going to be putting together. I'm gluing these, like I said, onto a 6x6 card base, and the dimension for this, they're going to be really simple cards, but I actually really love how they turned out. They're going to be very simple. These portions, the pattern papers, are just glued to the card base, and then the dimension is going to come from our sentiments, and I'm also going to add some flowers and some Nouveau drops on there as well. So again, just gluing them. We've got the 2 that's next to each other. The only thing I would be sort of wary of is to make sure that you are lining this up so you've got a nice even border around the edge, if that's what you're doing. I do notice that maybe some of the cards that I've got are, you know, I've got a little border that's sort of bigger on one side and not on the other. So definitely just be careful with how you're putting these together so you can make them as even as possible. This one here, using the 3 strips and turning this center one over, this is got to be one of my favorite designs, I think. I do really love how these ones have come out. Because it's just something a little bit different, and I do actually like that middle strip is thinner as well. For some of these, I do think it really works nicely. You could also do this a different way. So with those 3 strips ones, you could do it where you have the some plainer cardstock on the outside and then the more patterned on the inside. That would definitely work as well, especially if maybe you've only got a little bit of patterned paper left. So now we're going to move on to our sentiment. So this is one of the new dies that I picked up from Card Making Magic. This is the Happy Birthday. So out of the 3 sets of cards we are doing a happy birthday, a thank you, and a congratulations. So with this particular die, I did show you in the haul video, but this is 2 dies. You get the shadow die, and then which is just like an outline for your sentiment to sit on, and then we have our sentiment. It is 1 die cut piece with the exception of the little dot for the eye. I did end up keeping them, but you know, if you misplace them, I don't think it's that big of a deal. If you wanted to replace it with something else, you could use gems and things or some Nouveau drops to do that. So I've obviously missed a little bit of footage there, just where it comes to assemble them. You see me assemble one there. It's all pretty much the same after that. But what I decided to do was add a little bit of an embellishment to this. And so I've got here, this is some stitched flowers by Creative Expressions. I picked this up from was it the craft clearance website, I think it might have been. I did show a haul before, and I've used these for a few different projects now because I really love the sizes of them. So what I did was die cut these from some navy cardstock, and also I think I used the yellow cardstock, and then possibly on the 3rd card I used the ocean blue cardstock as well. My mind is just going blank with colours at the moment. When it came to the sentiments of this took me an embarrassing amount of time to decide what I wanted to do. So first of all, I started off with some ocean blue for the shadow layer. And then I had orange, I think it was the pumpkin orange I had for the actual word die cut. Didn't like how that looked. Then I did a silver mirror card shadow layer with the orange. I kind of liked how that looked, but what I didn't like about it was I ended up with a lot of glue because the happy birthday sentiment is quite thin. You have to be kind of gentle with how much glue you're adding onto it. So all the glue kind of squirted out from the sides and it looked really messy and I didn't like it. So I had that option. Then I might have die cut, I think I did the white. Then I die cut the ocean for the ocean blue for the actual words itself. And then I die cut white for the shadow and the yellow. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. It really is just finding that right combination sometimes when you've got patterned paper and not every single pattern is the same. So, you know, not every card has yellow on it. And the colours were more yellow, I think, than orange, like I first sort of initially wanted. But so I settled on the white shadow with the yellow, and I really loved how that turned out. I die cut 2 different sized, real simple flowers from this kit, like I said, from that navy cardstock. I added a nice big foam pad onto the back, or 2 foam pads onto the back of the sentiment, put that into the middle, and then I glued 1 large flower and then 2 smaller flowers, and then I used the Vintage Drops Yellow Brick Road to add the centers to those, and that's a really great way of using up some of your embellishments as well, like the Nouveau Drops, you know, adding them to the center of flowers. So all 4 of the cards basically followed the same layout that had all the same design, and yeah, these just, I'm going to mix and match these. So there's going to be 4 sets of 3 cards, which I think is just going to work quite nicely as like a little set to have. Then these are the thank you cards. So again, this is the thank you die from Card Making Magic, and I did the same thing again. I did the shadow in white, but this time I did the navy cardstock. I wanted to mix and match a little bit, so not every single one was exactly the same. So I did the navy cardstock for the thank you sentiment, and then for the flowers for these cards, I used the yellow cardstock, and then for the centers I used some blue Vintage Drops. Since they're next to me, I can tell you it was the worn navy that I did for the center of those flowers. And I think those worked really nicely as well. And like I said, I think out of the three, maybe because this is a design, like I said at the start, that I don't think I've done before. I really like how these ones looked, especially with the thank you in the middle. I thought it looked really nice. But like I was saying before, you could do the plainer cardstock. Maybe if you've got small bits of patterned paper left, like some good patterned paper, you could do the patterned paper strip in the center, and then you could just do plain paper for the edges. That would work as well for using up, again, a lot more of your scrap. So we'll see what we've got left. Maybe that will be sort of some options. So I popped some foam tape onto the back of the thank you as well, exactly the same, and added, again, the same. We had one large and two small, but then I do end up with some of the cards end up with like two big and one small. It just depends how much I actually die cut of those. But I really love this paper pad. I've got like some more ideas of what we're gonna do here. I am gonna be selling these cards. I've got a stack of cards to put up on my Etsy shop that I'm going to be selling. I'm currently in the middle of designing my website as well, which is going to have cards on there. But I'm using my light box. If you didn't see that in my studio video, I'm using that light box to kind of take better photos and things. So I'm going to put some photos at the end of this video of the cards, all of them sort of laid out nicely, mainly because I obviously didn't show all of the cards at the end of this video. So I want you to kind of see all of them together. So we're going to put those at the end, and then, yeah, definitely need to get them on to sell. So for my third set of cards here, so these are the diagonal. These are the Ultimate Ribbon Sentiments from Creative Craft Products. These are the birthday and the celebration pack here. And again, with this, I think this comes in a bundle. I'm pretty sure it's a bundle. All of the products I will link in the description box down below that I've used in the video. This has a stamp for the actual sentiment. I'm going words together. It has an actual stamp for the sentiment, and then it has a set of dies as well. You have one die which acts as a coordinating die, so you can die cut it out, and you've got a nice white border around it. But then you do also have the exact same size that this die that I'm adding glue to now. The word portion, you do have a die, which is what I'm using here. So you have a few different sort of variations of how you can use this together, depending on what kind of look you're going for. With this, I did the same thing again with that white shadow layer, and then I use that ocean blue cardstock for the sentiment, and then the yellow flowers again. And I'm just going to add some circle foam pads onto the back of this, and then we're going to add this kind of on that diagonal line. I think that looks quite nice. It would be nicer maybe if this sentiment was chunkier, so it kind of took up a bit more space. I think that would be great. But again, just as a simple card design, you know, these took me, like I said, about 2 afternoons. The majority of this, like I said, was trying to work out what kind of sentiments I wanted to create, but they were some really easy cards to put together. And I do really enjoy a little bit of crafting like this as well. So we're going to finish off these last cards. I think the Nuvo drops I used in this one, I want to say, was possibly a Bohemian Teal, but I can't 100% remember. I will be totally honest with you. But yeah, that will then sort of finish these cards. So I'm going to kind of show you these 4 cards together, but I didn't show you the first one. So I'm going to pop some pictures in a second to kind of show you all of the cards that we have created. The photos might not necessarily be the best, only because you can still see a little bit of the light box on the sides. But yeah, I really wanted to kind of fill that screen sort of as much as possible. So these are all of the 12 cards that I ended up creating in today's video. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos using this paper pad, the other paper pads I've got, and just any other videos that I will be uploading onto my channel. That is going to be it for today's video. So thank you very much for watching, and happy crafting.